Hi, everyone. So, in the past, we've talked a lot about things like body composition and recompositioning, where you're either gaining muscle or losing fat or both. And we've talked a lot about nutrition and lifestyle and so many things. But one thing I want to talk about here today is how your hormones control your health. And really, they are a major player. Now, there's more than 50 hormones, so we're not going to talk about all of them by any means today. In this video, I just want to touch on a key few that, generally speaking, for most of the audience, are going to be some of the main ones that require some influence. And at least I want you to come away from this video really understanding how the decisions you're making each day are potentially helping you in terms of hormones and your long-term health, or potentially hurting you. So let's go ahead and dive in to some of the key hormones that I think are going to be the most important to talk about in this general video. And of course, remember, you can reach out to me so we can talk on a more personal level, so I can look at your own health metrics, your own lifestyle, and then go from there to really give you more personalized information. All right, so let's talk about some of the key ones, right? Testosterone and growth hormone. These two are really critical. They're often talked about in the manosphere in terms of guys that want to gain muscle more for aesthetics, more for either sports performance or just looking better. And for women too, who want to gain more muscle mass. I want you to think of growth hormone and testosterone, though, in a different way. Think of them as key hormones in anti-aging. Now, even the phrase anti-aging can be interpreted in different ways. So let me drill down even further on what I'm talking about here. When it comes to hormones like testosterone and growth hormone, think of them as when you keep those levels really healthy consistently, not just for a good 2 or 3 months like a lot of people do, but for the long run, for decades as you're getting older, you are going to be a lot less likely to see some of the health problems in terms of mobility, in terms of aches and pains. Lethargy is a really big one. And even to a degree, in terms of the aesthetics of how young your face looks and things like that. This really all boils down, for the most part, they're a big part of it all, to proper secretion of these two hormones. Now, you might think that genetics play a huge role in determining how much of those hormones you're actually getting secreted, but it's a lot of lifestyle. It really comes down a lot to your nutrition, to the amounts and the quality of dietary fat and protein that you're consuming on a day-to-day basis. A lot of this also will come down to lifestyle, to how deep of sleep you're getting. Are you locking in circadian rhythms healthfully where you're getting the same bedtime and the same wake time every day? Are you sleeping in total darkness? And of course, there's also, aside from sleep and some other lifestyle factors like nutrition, there's also the exercise science component. Now, people tend to think of exercise, and I've complained a lot about this before. People tend to think of exercise as either you do it or you don't. They rarely really go deep on the quality, right? So people say to me all the time, Val, I exercise 4 days a week. I work really hard. I can't be doing much more. Yes, you can. When we get the science right and we really dial into some of the guidelines that are more associated with better hormone secretion, you can really improve these factors a lot. All right, so that's probably all I should say at this point, unless I get to know you and your own personal metrics about testosterone and growth hormone. I'm going to talk about some other hormones in just a moment. But just please know, a key takeaway is if your testosterone and your growth hormone levels are not being optimized each day, you're leaving a lot on the table in terms of what you can be doing for not only your longevity, like how long you're living, but certainly your quality of life each day, your level of enthusiasm towards the things you're doing, and your performance as well. All right, so now let's move on to cortisol. And we've all heard about cortisol. It's a stress hormone. Cortisol is a really big one. And although genetics always do play something of a role, lifestyle and epigenetics is really a more important component. And so you do have control over your cortisol and your other hormones as well to a good degree. And what I'm going to suggest is that your cortisol levels are going to be really healthy if you, again, have the right lifestyle, if your exercise science is right and is consistent, if your sleep is appropriate, but also in terms of the way that you're managing emotional stress. I can't tell you how many people have come to me and they say, hey, I know I should exercise more. I should exercise more. And I'm always hearing exercise more, but there's also a lot more to it than that. You want to take time out to laugh. You want to schedule some time every week so that maybe you can enjoy a comedy or a stand-up show or something that's really going to make you kind of forget some of your troubles, maybe forget what's going on at work or what you're concerned about in your home environment. and just really feel good about being a person for at least 30 minutes to an hour or so. Just cut loose at least once a week, preferably more. I think for many of you, every day would be optimal if you can make the time, and really prioritize that because cortisol is such an important part of your longevity and your aging, and it affects every component of your physiology. In fact, when we look at people in the blue zones who live abnormally longer and frankly better quality lives than people in the rest of the world, one of the things we find is that their cortisol levels, their overall stress is really well managed, and they have a very positive perspective about waking up each day and getting into their day. You might want to do an entire lifestyle overhaul. I've had clients who I've suggested getting an entirely new job, changing careers, maybe going to part-time instead of full-time if that's feasible. We all have responsibilities, but at the end of the day, I think your greatest responsibility is to your longevity and to staying out of the hospital and off medications and really doing your best each day. So let's talk a little bit now about melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone a lot of people don't think enough about, and I think it's getting more lost in the shuffle as time goes on here in our lives. Melatonin is ultimately secreted as nighttime sets in. At least that's how nature intended it. So if you ever spend time outside and you're actually watching the sun go down and you're out there from full daylight to total darkness, that is really optimal for melatonin secretion. And in a perfect world, you would have that kind of environment every night before bed, and then once it's dark out, you go right to sleep. That'd be perfect. Of course, our lives don't work that way, right? In some parts of the country and in the world, it's dark at 5 p.m. You can't go to bed at 5 p.m. And certainly you can't spend your entire life outdoors, right? So I would say that if you're someone who has an abnormal bedtime, where some nights you're going to bed at 9, some nights it could be midnight, and I know a lot of people stay up later on the weekends, the first thing I would suggest is try to button that down, try to get it closer where the distance within that spectrum is not so wide. Okay, that's the first thing I'd suggest. The other thing is try not to be someone who 1 minute is on their phone with EMFs and blue light and all these things happening. And then all of a sudden, oh, bedtime, shut off the phone, shut off all the lights and go right to bed, because that doesn't work for the brain. The brain says, what are we doing here? I thought we were wide awake. What you want to do is simulate within your home what's going on outside as the sun comes down. So what you want to do is if you have dimmer switches on your lights, perfect. For about 30 minutes to an hour or so before bed, slowly try to dim the environment. Also, try to be off electronics 30 or 45 minutes prior to bedtime. No electronics. TV is not so bad if it's far enough away from you, but the idea is you don't want a screen right up just within a couple of feet of you. That's not a good idea. Also, if you are going to be watching TV or using a screen or anything before bed, if that's just the way it's got to be, then at least try to have something that's blocking blue light. That'll certainly help. And also, again, I want to come back to dimming the room, dimming the environment. If you don't have dimmer switches, at least try to perhaps shut off the lights in the room that you're in and just keep some lights from the hallway or a neighboring room so you have some light coming in, but not much. It's not going to be as good as being outdoors while the sun's coming down, but this is certainly going to help you somewhat. It's going to let your brain better understand what's happening. It's going to help you get into a slightly better state of calm before bed. Another thing, too, is to have a little bit of a ritual right before bed in those 20 or 30 minutes prior. Try to be doing something like journaling, where you're just getting some thoughts off of your mind, or maybe talking with your partner if you have a partner, talking about some of the day's events, talking about just any thought that can get you into a less stressed state. Anything that's weighing on you, try to get it off your chest. Whether you write it down, you talk about it, and also try to go to bed feeling like the day is well accomplished. Try not to have lingering concerns and things weighing down on you, because that's certainly going to disrupt your sleep. So we've only talked about a few key hormones here today, everybody, but hopefully you can understand the takeaway is that if you have the right exercise prescription, and again, I don't just mean if you exercise regularly, I mean if you have the right exercise prescription, and you couple that with the right nutrition, the right lifestyle habits, I'm telling you, you are going to be able to better control your hormones. And those hormones, of course, are going to give you far better health outcomes, and not just health outcomes in terms of longevity, longer life, but I'm also talking about just waking up each day and feeling like, yeah, I'm ready for another day. Let's do this. That's ultimately what life is all about. So go ahead and reach out to me if you'd like to talk more personally. I look forward to your health and your wellness success.